make something out of that. Not in this video, but in our next one. What is going on, guys? So today we're back with another deep dive, and today we're actually going to be going over one of the ghosts that didn't make it into the first round of ghosts, but he's back with a vengeance. Dusclops, being a pure ghost type Pokemon, maxing out at a lonely 1591, so close to being that like 1500 perfect CP, but with an 8 on attack, 15 defense, 15 stamina at level 39.5. You do actually hit that clean 1500 while also getting the maximum amount of stat product out of your Dusclops, which works out pretty good. Now, if you actually compare Dusclops up against every other participant inside of the Timeless Cup, we do actually have an 8th in bulk and a 6th in stat product, which actually works out pretty nice. Now, of course, all of that does come from our base stats with a 124 on attack, 234 on defense, and a 120 in stamina. That actually works out pretty nice. That defense is amazing. So, of course, we know that's basically only half of the story, though. Let's take a look at our moves here to get a full picture on how well we actually do. So in terms of fast moves, we do have Feint Attack and Hex. Feint Attack clocking in at 3 energy per turn for 3 damage per turn, while Hex actually gets us 3.66 energy per turn for 2 damage per turn, but we do get stabbed, so we actually have a 2.4 after we calculate that in. So out of those two, it kinda, at first I was kinda like, well, maybe Feint Attack will actually, bring back a little bit of a lead here because of some damage that it has over Hex, but honestly, because we have our charge moves that are relatively low in cost anyways, it makes a lot more sense to just go with Hex here anyways, and it speeds us up a ton and actually helps us just be a lot more consistent. So, speaking of those charge moves, we do actually have Shadow Punch, Ice Punch, Fire Punch, Frustration, and Return. And out of all of those, I really like Shadow Punch and Ice Punch. So I know, I think PvPoke actually recommends Fire Punch, but either way that you look at it, Fire Punch is going to help you up against the grass types, and then Ice Punch is going to help you up against those same grass types. Basically, they both work out to be the same. Although I do think that Ice actually gives a little bit more of an interesting play to the grass type Pokemon personally, but between the two, honestly, you could just go with either one. They're both literally the exact same setup. It just depends on, do you need more firepower or do you need more ice power on your team? If you have a fire starter already, it might be more worthwhile to go with an ice type move. Or if you don't have a fire type starter, maybe you want to go with a fire type move either way. So let's go over some numbers here really quick. Shadow Punch for 35 energy, we get 40 damage at a 1.14. It does get stabbed, boosting it to 48 on the damage for a 1.37, which is fine. Ice Punch and Fire Punch both clock in at 40 energy to fire, 55 damage at a 1.38. We do have Frustration, of course, 40 for 10 at a 0.25. Horrible move. Return, 40 for 50 at a 1.25. It's okay. I did actually run some simulations with Return, and unfortunately, there was a huge drop in terms of our wins and losses, so I kind of steered clear of Return on that one. But for what it's worth, like I said, I do think you should choose between Ice Punch and Fire Punch depending on what kind of pressure you need. If you need more fire pressure, go with that. If you need more ice pressure, go with this. It just kind of makes a little bit more sense. Hex, I definitely think is going to help you get there, and Shadow Punch is just so nice, being so low cost. It just really lets you put a ton of shield pressure on really early on in the entire match. So speaking of a match, let's actually take a look at some shielding scenarios here. We're going to take a look at the entire cup. In that 0 versus 0 shield scenario, we actually start out with a 40.6, which is respectable, but I'd like to see at least a 50% here. The 2 versus 0 actually ends up at a 96.4, which is great. The 0 versus 2, I usually like to say that I'd like a 10% here, and we unfortunately don't even hit half of that. We stick to a 4.7, which is pretty low, but then we get to the 2v2 with a 45.8%, which is right under that 50% mark, which I'd really like to see. Switching over to the entire meta though, we do actually have a 0 versus 0 situation clocking in at 16.2, which is bad. Unfortunately, that's just really low. Next, in the 1 versus 0, we actually only clock in at 56.8. Then the 0 versus 1 is the fabled goose egg. So we have just some really sloppy numbers when it comes to the meta here. And I tried checking around like between Ice Punch and Fire Punch, and I still couldn't really find a huge difference here, especially in the 1v1. They both stuck at 24.3%. So that's why I kind of say whichever one you need more firepower for, go for that. But with that 1v1 being a 24.3%, let's actually break that down and split these wins and losses up and figure out what we actually have going for us here. So in terms of our wins, we do actually have Banette, Shelgon, Ivysaur, Venomoth, Venusaur, Gloom, Meganium, Blaziken, and Blossom. So as you can see there are a ton of grass types in there. Not all of them, but definitely a good chunk of them. And we also do have Blaziken in there, which of course, if it's utilizing counter, it's gonna have a really hard time putting any damage on us to begin with, but hey, works out pretty good. As far as our losses though go, we do have a Kingdra as a tie, which should be in the right hand corner there. And then we do actually have Sceptile, Torkoal, Victory Bell, Frostlass, Lantern with Charge Beam, Swampert, Castform in its Snowy form, Ludicolo, Skuntank, Muck, Sudowoodo, Dragonair, Quagsire, Castform in its Sunny form, Castform in its Rainy form, Ninetales, Whiscash, Celio, Charizard with Air Slash, Lapras, Drapion, Lantern with Water Gun, Haunter, Typhlosion, Charizard with Fire Spin, Blastoise, and Glalie. So, the one big problem with running an ice type move is that you kind of don't do anything towards the ice types. It does serve as a pretty good catalyst for actually running Fire Punch instead of Ice Punch here. But I'm gonna leave that up to you, ultimately. So, last but not least, of course, we do need to break down our losses and try to figure out what we have a really hard time with in general and what we could pair with Dusclops to make him shine a little bit better here. So, the first thing that I see that we really have a problem with are a lot of the water types. Things like Blastoise, Lantern with both fast moves, and Whiscash all give us a pretty big problem here. And I think an easy way to handle most of those would be the grass type. Things like Ivysaur, Victory Bell, or even Ludicolo would all do really well there. Next, we do have the fire types. Things like Charizard, depending on either move, actually does really good here. Typhlosion, of course, is going to do really good. It does actually utilize Shadow Claw, which is a whole nother thing in itself. And then Ninetales, of course, is also a big deal in the fire types. And one of the easiest ways to counter those is going to be the water types. So Castform in its Rainy form, Quagsire, or even Swampert are great options to go up against those fire types. And then the last typing that we actually have here is the Ice type with Glalie, Celio, and Castform in its Snowy form, always giving us some trouble here. And like I said, one of the best ways to counter those would be a Fire type move, or just a Fire type Pokemon in general. Things like Castform in its Sunny form, Blaziken, or even Torkoal will actually do a lot of work there. So in general, I'd say Dusclops is decent. But honestly, like once I was doing this deep dive, actually doing the research for it, I thought to myself, wow, these shielding scenarios are like really poor. And most of the shield scenarios that we've looked at across multiple Pokemon lately all seem really horrible. But I don't think that it's necessarily that they're horrible. I think that because of the whitelist type meta, it's that things don't have such obviously good use cases anymore. Things are a lot more well-rounded, a lot more less obvious as like an amazing pick. Things are a lot more well-defined in terms of the meta. So I don't expect too many more Pokemon, especially actually just in general in terms of these whitelist metas. I don't expect too many more Pokemon to just really outstand everything else. Of course, there's always going to be like that one edge case where it does really, really good always, but in general, I think that we're pretty much moving into an era where everything is going to be very, very close on an even playing field. And I'm okay with that. So that is actually going to be it for Dusclops today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember that if you want to join the Discord, it is going to be down in the description below. You can vote for the next deep dive, and we should actually have a cup coming up very soon here. I think we're about a week away. Is that right? Either way, if you want to do that, if you want to help decide what the first deep dive of the next cup is, of course you can do that down in the description inside of that Discord server to whatever. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and head out. Thank you again. I will see you in the next video, and see you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Always remember that if you like to like videos, you could do that, but if you don't, you could be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below about the video. I do highly appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to support me in any way, there are several links down in the description for Patreon, joining the community here on YouTube, or even just directly PayPal if that's your thing. I greatly appreciate everyone's name that's on screen, as you guys have showed some sort of support outside of just viewing the videos, and I thank you guys. You don't understand from the bottom of my heart. So until our next video, guys, I will catch you then.